Okay, the markets have closed on a fairly decent note, we've got the rupee closing flashes at the bottom of the screen as well. So 82.46 as compared to 82.81 or so is where the rupee market is ending. Now, Apollo Hospitals' Suneeta Reddy talks about their flagship Indraprastha Hospital in Delhi NCR. Talking on the core hospital business, the company expects occupancies to move up to 70% with revenues generated from the oncology space to close to around 1,700 crores this year. Listen to excerpts from that exclusive conversation my colleague Ekta had earlier.
Last quarter it was at 68%, and we did have a lot of fevers also. But the important thing about Apollo is really one, a denominator has changed. So we have a 9% increase in operational beds. So therefore, you have to keep that in mind when you look at occupancy. I think the second most important thing is that our ALOS has moved from 3.78 to 3.4. And therefore, our asset utilization and absolute number of patients have grown by 19%. So that, these figures on occupancy will keep changing. But these are the levers that we use.
But any kind of guidance that you have in terms of what your target occupancy would be, where do you want it to sustain? I think it's around 70%.
Yes, you're right. It's around 70%. And I think with this level of ALOS and the current case mix we have, this is, it will generate a lot of free cash flow.
But this case mix, one of the views is that complex surgeries have increased quite significantly because the awareness is greater. So in terms of your case mix, is it much more complex as compared to pre-COVID?
So at Apollo, we've always focused on our COEs, Centers of Excellence, which are cardiac, orthopedic, neurology, transplants, robotic surgery, and a lot of general surgical work and mother and child. So as we look at these specialties, there has been a tremendous increase. So if you take oncology, for example, when we started our investment cycle, we were at 800 crores of revenue. Then we invested in the proton, which really no one in Southeast Asia had done. And hopefully we should close the year with 1,700 crores of revenue coming from oncology. But the premise of all this, the base of all this is that our clinical outcomes should be the best in the world. And therefore we attract the talent. And therefore we can invest in the technology.
The Proton Therapy Center, how much is it generating in terms of revenue? What is the occupancy like? Do you need to set up another center? Can we expect that?
So in terms of revenue right now, it's about 260 crores of revenue. But we're only at 50% capacity utilization. And I think, during COVID, we didn't get that many patients, but it has picked up tremendously. And I think, we can, like I said, 50% capacity utilization, which will increase because we're opening the third gantry next month.
The other big talking point post-COVID is definitely medical tourism, medical value tourism. There's so much of an impetus from the government as well on it. And companies or hospitals are looking at CapEx, which is catered to inflow of patients from abroad. Where does it stand as a percentage of sales? How bullish are you on it as a prospect?
People have always measured it as a percentage of sales. So we should close the year with 7%. But having said that, the absolute revenue coming from international patients has actually grown over 19% over 2020 when it was peaked. So in absolute terms, there has been an increase. And I think the potential is to go to 20% of revenue. And we believe that, that Apollo will be the biggest player in international patient traffic. And I say this because of our locations. In 2 years, we'll open our Gurgaon facility. We have Delhi, Gurgaon, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and Ahmedabad. Being located in all of these centers is bringing us patients from across the world.
Acquisitions, would you look at acquisitions just to fuel that aspect of growth? You have made smaller acquisitions.
Yeah.
But something larger, any kind of pipeline you can share with us?
I think any acquisition that is value accretive makes sense to us. So we did Gurgaon, which is brownfield. We're setting up a hospital of, of the future in OMR in Chennai. So clearly we are expanding our footprint. We're adding 2,000 beds in the next 4 years. So it is a huge expansion. And acquisitions, if something comes across, something comes our way, of course we'll look at it.
Okay, well, that is a piece from a very special series we've planned for you, Medicine Box, a deep dive into the world of pharma and healthcare. Catch the full conversation this evening at 5:30 p.m. only on CNBC-TV18. Well, let's focus on the big global market cue. We are tracking the US FOMC will announce its final rate decision for the